Teachers of Reddit, who was that difficult parent and how did you deal with them? I wasn't a teacher but a camp counselor. All kids with special needs were still a part of our main camp group, but were supposed to have a special counselor that was individually assigned to them, that knew about their needs and how to deal with them. This one parent sent her kid to camp but did not tell us that the kid had special needs. One day the kid threw a temper tantrum unlike one I had ever seen before, and I didn't know how to appropriately deal with her. When the mom was confronted, she was refusing to believe that her child had any special needs, and was threatening a lawsuit. Former camp counselor, can confirm, this happened all the time, never was threatened with a lawsuit, but I never understand why parent pride is more important than the kid succeeding and having a good time. I used to teach at a private high school. I had a freshman boy who was constantly giving me trouble, refusing to do his work, showing up tardy with no excuse, texting during class, etc. Not the worst behavior I've ever seen but annoying and consistent. One day, he strolled in 10ish minutes late talking on his phone. Nope. I told him to keep on walking to the vice principal's office. As he left the room, he said to whoever he was talking to on the phone, "Sorry, my C teacher is sending me to the office." Nope. Obviously he was suspended and there was a major conference with his parents. During that conference, the mother continually denied that her son called me a C because he doesn't cuss. Okay. His son was then called in to join the conference. His explanation for his behavior, said in front of his mother, "I was acting like a little Benito." I did my student teaching at a school that had mostly Hispanic students. A parent, who had never met me and didn't know anything about me, complained that I was favoring the white students. My overseeing teacher handled it by pointing out that I'm Hispanic. She said the look on the parent's face was priceless. Our dean, who is a black woman, enjoys the first face-to-face conference with the parents that accuse her of not understanding the culture and needs of a black person. Throw a hissy fit to my boss's boss, and various other unrelated people over her son needing a supply item for my class. We provide the item free to any family who asks, offer a way for them to buy one, or they can get it from a store, but those options didn't suit her. I passed it off to admin. I had to deal with this recently. One parent demanded I change a report card because she didn't think I properly assessed her child. After some back and forth, I basically rewrote the entire report card with the same exact score, but with a specific detail for my decision on every single score. I like her kid, but I wasn't changing his grades. When I taught, I sent home graded tests to be signed so that I knew the parents were at least aware of what was going on during each grading period. On kid who received an F decided to take a girl's test, I think she got to B, erase her name, and bring it back signed by his parents. The parent checked the gradebook online and sent me a note requesting a parent-teacher conference. They were infuriated that the child received an F, when they had clearly signed the test that showed an B. I agreed to hold the conference, and she came in the next morning, and she came in hot. I explained that he had brought home someone else's test AMD changed the name. I took about 10 minutes of verbal abuse from this lady about how her son is a good kid, and that I was lying to her, and so on. I just sort of blankly stared and took her crap. Once she paused for a moment, I opened my desk and took out the B test she had signed, a photocopy of the girl's original test that I had taken before sending the originals home, with a girl's name on it, a photocopy of her son's original test, with an F on it. I passed these across the table and explained what he had done again, and showed her proof. I made sure to also point out the vast differences in the neat, bubbly handwriting on one test, hers, and the scrawling nonsense on the other, his. She looked at her son for a second, looked back at me, said, "I'm sorry," and walked out. At least she had the decency to apologize to you in the end. The mom of one of my students was convinced that if we wrote the perfect IEP, we could cure her son's autism. She brought lawyers to school meetings, made ridiculous demands of the school, and seemed to enjoy making school staff afraid of her. Every one of my co-workers, including administrators, was terrified of her and would bend over backwards to make her happy. I knew she was full of crap and got off on this type of drama and attention. so I didn't give her the time of day. I would respond to one email from her a day. She usually sent 5-6 to each teacher, and if she sent me more I'd ignore them. In meetings, if she slung accusations at me, I'd simply pull up the data I took on her kid and calmly read it to her. I refused to be a part of her pathological need for attention. Plus, I hated my boss and was sick of the broken education system, so I really didn't give any fricks about making this be happy. That's really sad. Student skips class. I send an all-staff email to see if the student can be accounted for in another class. No response. I write the referral and contact the student's mother to inform her of the circumstances of the referral. The mother proceeds to go full Hulk, insisting that her child was in the classroom and that I did not see her. I explain that attendance records are legal documents and that her child's whereabouts could not be confirmed elsewhere on campus. She proceeds to screech at me, insisting that I should open my eyes while taking attendance and that I don't know how to do my job and that I should be fired. I calmly explain that she's welcome to speak with administration, then politely end the conversation. Hang up when she starts to spit expletives, saying I should be fired and that she's leaving her place of work to have a conference with me. I warn the principal, then teach my next class. A couple periods later, my principal walks into the room and lets me know that she handled it. The parent pounded her fists on the principal's desk, demanded that coverage be sent to my room so that I could be present for the conference. The principal would not allow her to talk to me, but instead called down the student. The principal pulled up the security camera footage and located the student's wandering campus. The mother screeched that I did not do my job and that I should be fired. In the end, the student admitted to the entire ordeal and was issued a suspension. When they returned, I didn't address it. I let her stew in her own stupidity for the remainder of the year. A week or two. The only one who apologized was the principal. Teaching is a thankless job, but apparently there are no limits. We were doing a unit on satire and I assigned a modest proposal by Jonathan Swift. 2 days later, I got an angry email asking me what was wrong with me and why I would ever think it appropriate to assign a piece of literature in which eating babies is sincerely advocated. She called me some nasty things and went to the principal asking that I be fired for corrupting the youth. I calmly explained that the purpose of the piece was satire and she didn't get it. I had to walk her through everything, explaining that Swift wasn't actually proposing eating Irish babies, but he was highlighting the notion that the English were treating the poor Irish like absolute crap, and most people didn't give a frick. But when he went to the extreme and said, well, let's eat the tasty little shoots, everyone freaked out about treating anyone so poorly. He used satire to accomplish his goal of shining a light on such a sensitive subject and it worked. It took the mom a while to figure it out, but when she got it, she was very interested in satire. I never got an apology from her, but she left me alone to teach the kids after that. The same can be said about other novels as well. I remember recently that some schools were thinking of banning the books To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn for using the N-word. I was called a communist sympathizer for having my AP class study Soviet propaganda and American propaganda and comparing the two. Also for encouraging critical thinking in my class. How did I deal with it? I got fellow instructors to have my back and we let common sense put that fire out quick. I remember in 4/5th grade, I was writing a persuasive essay and I was forbidden to pick my original topic because it was a communist idea. My wife is a kindergarten teacher and suspected that one of her students may be autistic. The kid couldn't communicate well at all, wasn't truly potty trained, and showed other classic signs of autism. My wife had a conference with the mother and explained that she would like him to be evaluated, but the mother refused and said that if her son did have autism, my wife was the one who caused it. My wife has learned to handle those situations much differently now. Being accused of causing autism will do that. Side story, I'm not a teacher, but I coach my kids' youth sports teams. I once had a dad approach me and try bribe me $50 to prevent a certain kid from playing in our upcoming flag football game. These were 6-year-old kids. I explained to him that I couldn't accept the money and how there was a mandatory play rule at this level, so I couldn't do it even if I wanted to. He was peed and had to be escorted out of a few games that year. We had books in the library about myths such as Bigfoot, vampires, zombies, and whatnot. I received a very long-winded letter that her daughter should not be reading these and I should monitor every book that her child leaves school with. My old school library had a whole section for books that people have banned. I work with at-risk elementary age kids. Had several parents threaten to kill me for having called children and youth on them for very obvious abuse. One left a dozen increasingly threatening messages on the program's answering machine. One parent actually show up at the school with a bat. Not sure how they thought that would improve the chances of their kid not being taken. I taught private preschool, which was a lot more like an actual school than a daycare. We taught them how to read and write, speak Spanish and learn math early on, and it was a great program. Kids flourished. I taught science in the afternoon and physical education in the morning. I had a segment about yoga and all my 3-year-olds loved it. It taught them how to stretch and focus and learn about their little bodies, and one little boy was so excited about it he ran up to his mom when it was pickup time and told her all about it. Well, mom thought I was teaching her son Hinduism, which meant I was letting Satan into her kid's heart. He had to stay out of my class when I taught it to his friends or play quietly. I watched that child break, watching everyone do something he loved. He became a different kid, and it was obvious he had a passion for many things his parents didn't want him to explore. He couldn't even be in the school play for Halloween or dress up. The worst part of it wasn't the parent yelling at me for almost an hour and almost getting fired over it, but watching a child feel left out of something he really loved because his mother was a raging bee. My mother taught special education and had to deal with all sorts of pleasant characters. I can't remember any specifics, but there were far too many parents who would take their kids off their meds because they got better. Why would they need more? My dentist prescribed me to take antibiotics for a full week and my mom refused to buy me them until like the 3rd day or so, and even then she bought 2 tablets. I got an infection for the first 3 days because of that. Her reasoning behind it is that antibiotics are bad for you and should be taken in moderation. I mean, no crap. That's why it has a freaking schedule. I had a parent send me emails before school even started that were accusatory. You know you are a liar, because she claimed I was friends with her ex-husband's new wife. I wasn't. Didn't even know the lady. The entire year I tried to avoid her because she was clearly cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. At one point I told her I would never meet with her one-on-one and that every message email she sent will be sent to our principal. She stayed pretty far away from me until the field trip. We arrived to the school after a long day and she ripped into me about ruining everyone's lives. That I'm a liar, I am a fraud, fake, just anything and everything she could think of pronounce, but for sure not be able to spell. The daughter was caught in the middle between both parents and fed them each complete lies to pin them against one another. Her next casualty was me. I tried to keep calm but burst out crying after she left, still trying to rip me apart in front of 150 parents. My principal was supportive and told her to leave the campus, but I like to think karma took care of dealing for her for me. She ended up being sent to jail for a while for something stupid. I had a student with honest medical needs, and he had a 504 plan which allowed him extra time. However, he was a sweet but lazy middle school boy. He wasn't too concerned about doing his work, even when given the extended time his plan dictated. He turned in an assignment and answered 5 of 25 questions. I offered for him to redo it for half credit, and he was fine with the score he had. Mom didn't have a problem with me until his grade started to drop to a D and I called her to notify her. Then, all of a sudden, I wasn't following his 504 and I was singling him out. When he has a medical issue blah blah. Other things came into play with this, also, but they're pretty specific. I could see the red flags and began documenting every single assignment the kid did. The date I gave it to him, the date it was due for him, the date he actually turned it in, and any suggestions I gave him as far as completing it, etc. Sure enough, Mom soon calls a meeting with the principal, me, the special ed coordinator, etc. She sat across from the table from me and blatantly lied about what I was doing for her son, how I was treating him, etc. She specifically said she's not even following his 504 plan. He is supposed to get extra time. It was everything I could do to keep my mouth shut. My principal glanced at me and could see me practically seething. Luckily, I had explained the situation and he totally had my back. Long story short, the meeting ended and she still wasn't happy, but he wasn't going to get moved from my classroom, which is what she wanted, because I was, in fact, following his 504 plan. He ended up in a different study hall period to keep caught up. She was mad that he was going to be singled out by being put into a smaller study hall. You know, that class most people take to sleep and draw. And he ended up doing fine because his study hall teacher stayed on his butt. That mom still bad-mouthed me throughout the years, though. Maybe not difficult but definitely most surreal. A number of years ago, I happened to be in the office when a parent came in asking for something that her student completed years prior. Her student had graduated a couple years before and had apparently done a poster project of some sort while in school. I don't think the student's teacher was even still employed by the school. Now, several years later, the parent wanted it. Maybe the poster was a work of art. I don't know, but schools don't hold on to student work indefinitely. If a student doesn't take something home, it will likely be thrown out at the end of the year. The administrator in the office explained this quite patiently. The parent only got more upset. It must be somewhere. Can't we at least look? The administrator, perhaps seeing a hopeless cause, had a stroke of brilliance. I can't, but you are welcome to. The administrator led the parent over to a bunch of bookshelves of random books. If we still have it, it would be here, pointing to the shelves. The parent spent 30 minutes convincing herself that the work really wasn't there, and left. Maybe her child had recently passed away and she was trying to hold off some of his old artwork. Grief makes people do weird things sometimes. I had a parent fake a pregnancy to try to keep her Colombian felon boyfriend from being deported. After it didn't work and he was given the boot, her 9-year-old daughter, with mental health issues, came to school and told us her mom was in labor and in the hospital. We tried calling mom, no answer. Mom calls us back right before dismissal saying she had the baby and she's at home. Quick recovery, resting, but baby Johnny was in the baby emergency room because he wasn't doing well. Daughter comes in the next day with pictures of what had to be a 1-year-old baby hooked up to machines, saying it was her new baby brother. Baby Johnny died 2 days later. A student threatened me, cursed me, assaulted me for asking mom, "Where is your hall pass?" Her responses were, "BRSN. I don't know you. Frick you. I know what you drive and your license plate number. You feel me?" Among other really terrible things I'd rather not repeat. Got to the parent conference with the assistant principal student and the parent said she cursed you because she doesn't know you. You took my child out of the learning environment because you felt threatened? She was obviously threatened herself and didn't do anything wrong. She won't be apologizing since she did nothing wrong. I'm a teacher at other high school in the district. I allow my black students to use the N-word profanity. That's how they express themselves, all while her child was laughing without correction. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I now feel sorry for the kid and make zero effort to enforce the rules with her. I don't get paid enough to deal with entitlement. You've been spotted by the doggo of studying. Like this video for good grades for the next 2 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.